When a fierce storm threatened to drown his herd, she stepped into the chaos, guiding the frightened cattle to safety with courage and skill. The wealthy rancher watched in awe and called her a miracle. The sky over the vast ranch darkened as the wind picked up, carrying the scent of rain and the distant rumble of thunder across the open fields. The cattle grazed lazily, unaware of the approaching danger, while the wealthy rancher rode along the fence lines inspecting the herd, his eyes scanning the horizon for any signs of trouble. He had managed this land for years, learned every rise and hollow and every habit of the cattle. He knew when the grass was rich, when the water holes were safe, and when the storms were coming. Yet today there was a restless energy in the air that made him uneasy. The clouds rolled in fast and heavy, and the first drops of rain began to fall in a light drizzle that quickly turned to a pounding downpour. The wind whipped across the plains, bending the tall grass and rattling the barn doors, and the herd began to sense the change as they shifted nervously, their lowing and movement signaling that something was not right. The rancher urged his horse faster, checking the fences and gates, calling out to workers who scurried to secure equipment and shelter for themselves and the animals. The lightning flashed and the first cracks of thunder made the cattle jump, sending a ripple of anxiety through the herd, and the rancher felt a tightening in his chest, knowing that the storm could scatter the animals in minutes if he did not act quickly. Yet there were too few hands to manage all of them, and the terrain was treacherous, muddy slopes and hidden gullies that could trap a panicked cow. He cursed under his breath, wishing for more help, when a figure emerged from the edge of the property, a young woman moving with confidence and ease through the wind and rain. She was known in the nearby town as someone who understood animals well, someone who had grown up around livestock and had a natural ability to calm and guide them. She was soaked to the skin, but her eyes were sharp, focused on the herd, assessing the situation with a clarity that only experience and intuition could provide. She called out to the rancher with a voice that carried over the roar of the storm, offering assistance, and he hesitated a moment, surprised to see her here in these conditions, but desperate. He nodded and motioned for her to approach. She rode alongside the herd on horseback and began to direct them, gently moving the frightened animals toward higher ground where the mud would not trap them, and away from the fast-rising water and the low fields. Each movement of her body, each word she spoke, seemed to reach the cattle in a way the rancher had not seen before. Her calm authority in the face of chaos inspired confidence not just in the animals but in the rancher as well, and as the storm intensified, the two of them worked together, a rhythm forming naturally between them. He called out instructions, she responded seamlessly, coordinating with him and with the herd. It became clear that she was more than capable. Her knowledge of the land, her understanding of animal behavior, and her courage in facing the elements turned what could have been disaster into a carefully managed rescue. The rain fell in sheets, the wind tore at their clothing and hair, and yet neither hesitated. The first flashes of lightning illuminated the sprawling fields and the panic of the cattle in stark relief, and the rancher watched her moving effortlessly and decisively, aware that without her the losses could have been catastrophic. And in that moment he realized that her presence was extraordinary, not just for her skill but for the way she faced fear and danger with a combination of intelligence, bravery and compassion. The storm had come suddenly and with full force, but the rancher and the young woman rose to meet it together, and in that shared struggle the stage was set for the remarkable events that would follow. The storm had grown fiercer, the rain falling in heavy sheets, turning the fields into rivers of mud. The wind howled through the trees and across the open plains. The cattle were scattered, some huddled in low areas where water was beginning to rise, others stampeded blindly, driven by fear. The rancher pushed his horse to its limit, calling out commands, but the chaos made it nearly impossible to control the herd. He spotted a young woman moving with determination through the torrential downpour, her coat and hair plastered to her body, yet she navigated the slippery terrain with ease and confidence. She approached the nearest group of frightened cows, speaking softly but firmly, guiding them away from the rising water toward higher ground. Her hands moved with precision, steadying calves and redirecting adult cattle who had broken free from the herd. The rancher watched in awe, noting how her presence alone seemed to calm the animals. She assessed the land quickly, noticing the hidden gullies and slick slopes that could trap the herd, and adjusted her path accordingly. She ran alongside the frightened creatures, leaning into the storm, allowing the wind to whip around her as she maneuvered them to safety. Every step she took was measured yet fluid, each gesture calculated yet instinctive. She avoided debris, fallen branches and deep puddles, using the natural contours of the land to funnel the animals toward the safety of the main enclosure. The rancher finally realized that alone he could not have saved them all, and without hesitation he motioned for her to take the lead as she guided the panicked cows through the worst of the storm. Her voice rang out clear over the roar of thunder, her instructions precise and calm. She moved from one group to another, never hesitating and never losing control. The animals responded to her in a way that seemed almost miraculous. They shifted direction instantly, following her guidance, their panic slowly transforming into trust in her command. And the rancher's admiration grew as he witnessed the courage and skill with which she faced the storm. Her eyes never wavered, her focus absolute, yet there was a warmth in her expression, a quiet determination to protect the creatures in her care, even at great personal risk. The storm continued to rage around them. Lightning flashed across the dark sky and the wind tore at their clothes and hair, But still she pressed on, her every action saving lives in real time, and as she led the last group of cattle toward higher ground, the rancher realized that he had not just found a helper in this storm, he had witnessed a true display of bravery and compassion in action, a courage born of experience, intuition, and an extraordinary connection with the animals he had spent years tending. Now, under the fury of nature, a young woman had become the guiding force keeping his herd alive, and in that moment he knew he would never forget her skill, her courage, and the miraculous way she had stepped into danger without hesitation. The rain continued to lash the plains, the wind bending the tall grass and whipping across the mud-slick fields. The herd was still scattered, though slowly coming together under the guidance of the young woman. The rancher rode alongside her, doing what he could to help, but realizing that her instincts and experience far surpassed his own, she moved fluidly from one group of cattle to another, her hands steadying frightened calves, her voice calm yet commanding, directing the panicked animals away from the most dangerous areas and toward higher ground. Every movement she made was deliberate yet effortless, as if she and the land were one. She anticipated the animals' reactions and adjusted before they could bolt into hazards. The rancher marveled at her control, at the way the storm and chaos seemed to bend around her. She did not flinch at the lightning striking nearby or the thunder shaking the air. Instead, she pressed on, focused entirely on the task at hand. She noticed a mother cow struggling in a flooded ditch and sprinted toward it, her boots sinking into the mud, her coat soaked through, but her resolve unshaken. She coaxed the animal with gentle words and steady hands, guiding it up the slippery bank while the rancher held the younger calves close, preventing them from bolting into danger nearby. He realized that the herd's survival depended entirely on her timing and quick thinking. The storm showed no mercy, the rain pounding harder, the wind tearing at their clothing and hair, yet the young woman never faltered, her eyes sharp, scanning the horizon for new dangers, her instincts keeping the cattle moving safely. As she ran, she shouted instructions over the roar of the wind, the animals responding to her tone, following her guidance as if they understood her intentions. The rancher could barely keep up as she darted between the most vulnerable cows and the aggressive adults, leading them in a coordinated path that avoided hidden gullies and deep pools of water. With each group she saved, he felt a mix of awe and relief, knowing that without her bravery countless lives would have been lost. The storm tested every skill she had learned and every ounce of courage she possessed, yet she moved with certainty, each success reinforcing her confidence and the trust of the herd. The rancher finally saw clearly why the townspeople had spoken of her abilities and why he felt a sense of astonishment and gratitude. He knew that this was no ordinary helper, but a woman whose courage, intelligence, and empathy were nothing short of miraculous. And as the last of the cattle reached safer ground, the storm still raging around them, he could only look at her with a deep respect and wonder, realizing that her actions had saved his livelihood and that her presence in that moment was a turning point both for the herd and for the way he would forever see her. The moment of highest tension came as the storm reached its peak, lightning flashing across the sky and thunder shaking the earth. The remaining cattle were huddled near a low-lying area where the water was rising quickly and panic threatened to take over the herd. The young woman did not hesitate. She sprang into action, moving between the frightened animals, her voice calm yet authoritative, guiding them step by step away from the danger. She leaned against the wind, her body moving in rhythm with the herd, anticipating every jump and turn. She rescued a calf that had slipped into the mud, pulling it free with steady hands while keeping the larger cows from bolting into hazards. The rancher watched in stunned amazement, noting every detail, her courage and quick thinking transforming what could have been disaster into careful orchestration. He finally rode closer, realizing that alone he could not have saved the animals and that her skill and presence were the difference between catastrophe and survival. He called out encouragement and instructions, but it was clear that she was in complete command of the moment. She responded without hesitation, coordinating the movement of the cattle and using the natural terrain to funnel them to higher ground. As the rain hammered down and the wind threatened to throw them off balance, she remained focused, precise, and fearless. The rancher could see that she possessed not just experience but an extraordinary intuition, a connection with the animals and the land that seemed almost miraculous. In the midst of the storm, he witnessed her lifting a young cow from a slippery embankment, guiding it carefully to solid ground and moving back instantly to calm a panicked group nearby. Each success built momentum and slowly the herd responded, her presence transforming fear into trust. The storm began to ebb slightly and the last of the cattle were led to safety, standing drenched but unharmed. The young woman looked around, catching her breath and meeting the rancher's eyes. In that instant he felt a surge of admiration and awe. The danger had been immense, yet she had faced it with unwavering courage, skill, and determination. He called her a miracle, not out of exaggeration but because he had seen firsthand how her actions had saved countless lives. He approached her offering gratitude and respect, recognizing that her bravery had not only rescued his herd but had also altered his understanding of human courage and compassion. In that moment a connection was forged between them, a mutual respect born of shared danger and witnessed heroism. And as the storm finally began to to wane. The rancher knew that the events of that night would remain etched in his memory, a testament to the extraordinary impact of one woman facing the fury of nature with nothing but skill, determination and heart. The storm slowly began to fade, leaving behind a soaked but safe landscape. The cattle were finally gathered on higher ground, calm now and moving quietly as the young woman guided them gently toward the barn. The rancher followed close behind, his eyes filled with awe and gratitude, realizing that without her bravery the herd would have suffered great losses. He watched as she moved among the animals, her hands steady and her voice soft yet confident, earning their trust with every step. The sun began to peek through the clouds, casting a warm glow across the drenched fields and highlighting the exhaustion and determination on her face. He rode up beside her, finally finding words that could convey the depth of his appreciation. He called her a miracle, not just for saving the cattle but for facing the storm with courage, intelligence and heart. She smiled faintly, acknowledging his words while catching her breath, but there was no pride in her expression, only quiet satisfaction that the animals were safe and that her skills had made a real difference. Together they led the last of the herd into the barn, checking each animal to ensure it was unharmed. The rancher marveled at the way she had handled every challenge, the decisions she had made on the spot, and the instinctive understanding she displayed of both the terrain and the creatures in her care. He realized that he had never seen anyone approach such danger with such calm decisiveness and empathy, and as they finally secured the cattle and the wind died down, he extended a hand of friendship, gratitude and respect, recognizing that her courage had saved not only his livelihood but also changed the way he viewed human resilience and connection. In the quiet aftermath, the young woman stood beside him watching the herd settle, and she felt a sense of accomplishment and peace knowing that her actions had mattered. The rancher looked at her once more, his voice steady and sincere, calling her a miracle once again, and in that moment a bond was formed, a recognition of bravery, skill and character that would not be forgotten. And as they walked back toward the ranch house together, the fields glistening with rain and the sky clearing above them, both knew that the events of the storm had created a lasting connection between them, and that the story of that night would be remembered not just for the fury of nature but for the extraordinary courage of one remarkable woman.